Welcome to the second of today's videos, where we are exploring the Great Orme, which is close to the seaside resort town of Llandudno. Having traveled up to the summit of the Great Orme, we have come to near the halfway tram station, to now explore the Bronze Age copper mines. The Bronze Age copper mines on the Great Orme in Llandudno, North Wales, are one of Great Britain's most important prehistoric archaeological sites. Since excavations began in 1987, a vast network of tunnels dating back to the Bronze Age has been uncovered. The mine is now open to the public, creating a unique opportunity for visitors to see for themselves part of the extensive labyrinth of Bronze Age mine workings. Excavations are ongoing, and will continue for decades to come, and are entirely funded from visitor income. The original team who discovered the mine in 1987 continued to excavate and manage the attraction. Great Orme Mines has received many awards over the years, including the Archaeological Initiative Award for Outstanding Archaeological Fieldwork, the Prince of Wales Award for Tourism, and a Guinness World Record, confirming the scale and importance of the site as one of the world's largest Bronze Age copper mines discovered to date. Our story begins around 350 million years ago. The Great Orme is made of limestone, formed in the shallow tropical seas which covered North Wales at that time. Superheated solutions in the Earth's crust leached copper from rocks over a wide region, and when the solutions reached the dolomitic limestones, the copper was deposited as copper sulfides, chalcopyrite, in numerous parallel interconnecting veins. Erosion and uplift over millions of years eventually exposed the mineralized rocks at the surface. Subsequently, groundwater and weathering over thousands of years changed the copper sulfides into green and blue copper carbonates, malachite and azurite, which are much easier to smelt into metal. The favorable geology of the Great Orme is the most important reason such extensive early mining activity took place. The green and blue copper ores would have been visible at the surface, and the slightly softer dolomitic limestone surrounding the mineral veins would have made it easier for the Bronze Age miners to excavate with their simple tools. The mine site would probably have been a special place long before anyone realized the green copper or malachite could be transformed into metal. Current radiocarbon dating evidence suggests that mining began around 3,700 years ago, or 1700 BC, or even possibly earlier, and this would initially have been on the surface. The miners eventually had no option but to follow the ore below the ground, mining vertically and horizontally, leaving behind an extensive network of tunnels. The large surface cavity seen today may be a collapsed or deliberately unroofed underground chamber, which was so rich that virtually all the rock was removed as copper ore. The size of this area and the other large chamber beneath, seen from the present-day visitor's route, indicates the almost industrial scale of the operations by Bronze Age standards. Underground mining on the Great Orme was the natural progression once the more easily accessible surface deposits of copper ore had been exhausted. The Bronze Age miners created a labyrinth of tunnels, mining vertical veins at several different levels separated by horizontal bands of unmineralized rock. Today's explorers use modern rope access techniques for descent to the deepest Bronze Age tunnels, and although no evidence has been found, it is likely the ancient miners used ropes and ladders to enable them to get to these areas. The constantly changing conditions between wet and dry would have caused the rapid decay of any organic material like wood or plant fiber here at the mines. At the Bronze Age salt mines of Hallstatt, Austria, where underground conditions are favorable for the preservation of organic materials, ropes, ladders and rucksacks have all been perfectly preserved. It is therefore likely that similar equipment once existed on the Great Orme. The width and extent of the copper veins on the Great Orme varied considerably, and although there are many constricted spaces within the mine, areas where the veins widened would have been much easier to excavate. Working conditions in the mines must have been extremely difficult. Many of the Bronze Age workings are so small they could only have been mined by children. The smallest tunnel is only 20 centimeters wide and is too small for today's adult explorers to enter, indicating the miners probably worked in family groups. Crawling through the small tunnels today is very challenging, but helps us understand the problems faced by the Bronze Age miners. Their willingness to work in such uncomfortable situations lets us appreciate the value and importance of the copper ore to the people of the Bronze Age. Copper was mined on the Great Orme on an industrial scale during the Bronze Age, and large numbers of miners would have been involved. In addition to the miners, there would have been smelters, with the knowledge of turning the ore into metal, foresters, managing woodland to produce the timber needed for smelting and fire setting, boat builders, constructing sea-going vessels capable of moving heavy cargoes hundreds of miles by water, and numerous other people involved in the support of the mining community. Although the miners left behind one of the largest industrial sites of the ancient world, very little evidence of the people themselves remains. 2 human bones, a jawbone, and a collarbone, have been discovered, and have both been dated to around 3,600 to 3,700 years old. The jawbone belonged to a man aged 20 to 25 years old when he died. Analysis of his teeth suggests he spent his childhood in the area local to the Great Orme. It is most likely these human remains are from a burial of a Bronze Age miner which was later disturbed by mining activity in the 18th or 19th centuries. Little evidence of where the people lived can be seen today in proximity to the mines, and it is likely that the remains of Bronze Age houses lie buried under the 19th century mine waste tips. There are, however, a number of hut circles, the remaining foundation stones of prehistoric round houses, scattered around the Great Orme. Further investigation of these dwellings, include the excavation of sites, could be undertaken in the future. 3,000 years ago the Bronze Age miners on the Great Orme had reached depths of 70 meters below the surface. It would have been impossible for them to mine deeper than this, as they would have reached the natural water table. Water levels in the mine would have fluctuated seasonally, and it may have only been possible to mine at the deeper levels during the summer. The mine was abandoned around 3,000 years ago, and documentary evidence indicates it was not worked again until the late 17th to 19th centuries. Mining began again in the late 17th century due to a demand for copper and the improved ability to pump water out of the mine. A steam engine was introduced in 1835, and between 1834 and 1842, an 822-meter-long tunnel was mined at sea level, to drain the deeper mine workings. Once the drainage tunnel released the water from the mine workings above sea level, the pumps were used to remove water from the mines below. In 1849, the miners had reached depths of 70 meters below sea level, over 200 meters below the surface. It became increasingly difficult for the 19th century miners to control the increase of water into the mine, and eventually the deep mine workings filled with water faster than they could be pumped out. Commercial-scale mining on the Great Orme ended in the 1850s, although small-scale mining continued until the mines were finally abandoned in 1881. Tens of thousands of tons of waste material from the 18th and 19th century mining activities had been brought to the surface and dumped on top of the Bronze Age mine, completely covering the prehistoric landscape. The mine shafts were sealed and the mine remained unexplored for over 100 years. The ore-bearing rock would have been broken down into small fragments by pounding and crushing using hammer stones and mortar stones. This material could then be separated from waste rock by a process of hand sorting and possibly water separation by gravity for less rich ore. There is evidence of 2 Bronze Age copper washing sites here on the Great Orme, the nearest of which is a natural spring 500 meters from the mine. Copper ore is changed into metal by heating it in a small hearth, or furnace, at a temperature of approximately 1100 degrees C, in a process called smelting. The furnaces were fueled by charcoal which burns at a much higher temperature than wood. On its own, copper is a fairly soft metal. Combining approximately 10% tin with copper, produced the harder metal, bronze. This molten metal could then be poured into stone, clay, or bronze molds to create a variety of objects. The only known Bronze Age smelting site in Great Britain was discovered on the Great Orme by David Chapman of Ancient Arts in 1997. Excavations at the site have revealed fragments of smelted copper, and the remains of 2 possible furnaces. Current evidence suggests that mining on the Great Orme took place for several hundred years in the Bronze Age, though during the first part of the Middle Bronze Age, 1600 BC to 1400 BC, the site was mined on an industrial scale, producing most of the metal in circulation in Britain at that time. A number of methods have been used to estimate the amount of copper produced from the mine during this time. The most recent estimate of copper production from the mine, as part of Alan Williams' PhD study, proposes a copper output in the range of 232 to 832 tons, enough to produce between 500,000 to nearly 2 million bronze palstave axes. These estimates are based on the explored areas of the mine, with new areas being discovered each year. Production figures are being constantly revised as richness of the ore and extent of the workings are further understood. Thousands of Bronze Age axes and numerous other artifacts including swords, spearheads, shields, tools, ornaments and jewelry have been discovered in Britain. New hoards are continuously found. In 1987, the improvement of the derelict mine site on the Great Orme was commissioned by the local council and the Welsh Development Agency. The area was to be landscaped and turned into a car park. An underground survey was required to ensure the stability of the ground. Tony Hammond, of Ashton Mining Consultants, was awarded the contract to access the mine and conduct the survey. Large machines were brought in to open the 19th century mine shafts. Several hours after work began, the first 19th century mine shaft was opened, allowing mining engineers, archaeologists and members of the Great Orme Exploration Society the opportunity to explore the mine. Vivian's shaft is 470 feet or 145 meters deep, descending through the center of the Great Orme to sea level. The labyrinth of early mine passages and chambers were discovered, along with thousands of ancient tools. With the discovery of the archaeological importance of the site, the car park scheme was halted, and Ashton Mining spent 3 years carrying out feasibility studies and gaining planning permission to open the site to the public. The aim was to fund future archaeological excavation and research on the Great Orme. In April 1990, Tony and Anne Hammond, Andrew Lewis, and Edric Roberts formed the Great Orme Mines Limited, and work began to remove thousands of tons of 19th century mine waste to reveal the buried ancient landscape. Present manager, Nick Jowett, also joined the company in 1990. During this period the only access into the mine was via the 19th century mine shafts, and the biggest challenge was to locate the original Bronze Age entrances. In April 1991, the site was opened to the public, giving visitors the opportunity to see for themselves one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of recent times. Pathways and viewing platforms were constructed to give access to the surface excavations. In 1996, a bridge was erected over the top of Vivian's shaft. The Visitor Center's new extension, built in 2014, contains a selection of mining tools and bronze axes, along with displays about life and death in the Bronze Age, and mining and metallurgy. An introductory film with original footage of the excavations explains the discovery of the mine. A visit to the Great Orme Mines gives people the opportunity to safely explore a section of the Bronze Age mine workings. Almost all of the tunnels visitors walked through were backfilled with mine waste until excavation began in 1990. The route through the mine, which visitors use today, has been carefully excavated and reveals openings into previously unknown areas of the mine. Although many tunnels are large enough for visitors to walk through, other small off-route tunnels demonstrate the harsh, cramped conditions faced by our ancestors in their search for valuable ores. Creating a visitor route through 3,500-year-old mine workings presents its own problems. A significant effort has been put into the excavation and illumination of the prehistoric tunnels to create a safe passage for over 30,000 visitors each year. One of the highlights of the underground tour is the 3,500-year-old Great Cavern. Although we never know for certain the circumstances in which metal was first discovered, it was undoubtedly one of our ancestors' greatest achievements. Metal has given people the tools to shape the world around them like never before. It is hard to imagine a world without metal today. The mines on the Great Orme would have brought wealth and power to those who controlled them. Although bronze had many uses, one of its most significant applications was in the manufacture of axes. Bronze axes were more efficient than stone for clearing trees and making plank boats, as well as building a range of timber structures. The ability to cut wood more efficiently would also have had further impacts on health and lifestyle, as the Bronze Age people would have been able to keep warm and cook food on central fireplaces in their houses. Large numbers of bronze swords have also been found in Great Britain, and although for many years, it was thought these were simply status symbols, detailed studies of their edges suggest many of the British Bronze Age swords have been used in combat. The Bronze Age is the name given to the period of time between the Stone Age and the Iron Age, which lasted for about 1,400 years from 2,200 to 800 BC. The transition between the Late Stone Age, or Neolithic, and the Bronze Age is known as the Chalcolithic or Copper Age. Copper would have been used for over 200 years, before it was gradually replaced with bronze, as the metal of choice for the manufacture of tools and weapons. It is an alloy of copper and tin. The copper ore on the Great Orme runs in veins, mainly trending north to south. These veins vary in width, but the average size of the tunnels suggests most of the mining would have been done in constricted spaces, with miners unable to stand, or even kneel in the majority of the passages. However, in other areas, the veins of copper ore must have been very wide, and a number of large cavernous spaces have been left behind. In the central section of the mine, 3 major veins have converged, and been mined in one large mass, leaving behind what is thought to be the largest prehistoric mine chamber in the world. Radiocarbon dates from the chamber suggest it was mined in the middle of the Bronze Age, around 3,500 years ago. The cavern could have produced a considerable tonnage of copper metal. The chamber is probably the result of decades of mining by generations of different miners. Although miners in the 18th and 19th centuries were aware that people had mined on the Great Orme before them, it would have been impossible for them to guess the age of the mines. One particularly vivid account from the Gentleman's Magazine, dated 1849. It describes the discovery of an ancient cavern.
In October 1849, the miners at Llandudno, near Conwy, broke, in the course of their labors, into what appeared to be an extensive cavern, the roof of which, being one massive stalactite, reflected back their lights with dazzling splendor. On examination, the cavern turned out to be an old work, probably Roman, the benches, stone hammers, used by that ancient people having been found entire, together with many bones of mutton, which had been consumed by these primitive miners. These bones are, to all appearance, as fresh though impregnated with copper, as they were, when denuded of their fleshy covering. The cavern is about 40 yards long.
Today we are fortunate to have methods available to determine the age of the mine workings. In the late 1940s, scientist Willard Libby developed the method known as radiocarbon dating, which can be used to determine the age of any matter that has once lived. All living things, whether plant or animal, absorb carbon from the atmosphere, and, after death, the amount of carbon-14 within the matter starts to decay at a known rate, and in comparing the amount of carbon-14 to the amount of carbon-12, the age of the material can be calculated. A mix of dates from bone tools and charcoal remains from fire setting tell us The mine was in operation from around 1700 BC. The main grouping of dates ranges between 1700 and 1200 BC. The Bronze Age miners had a variety of tools and methods available to extract the ore. Since archaeological excavation on site began in 1987, over 2,500 hammer stones have been recorded. These stones would have been carefully selected from the local beaches for their size, shape and rock type. The largest hammer stone found to date weighs 30 kilograms and must have been suspended in a timber frame, as it is too heavy to have been used by hand. For many years archaeologists have thought that a distinctive type of axe, the palstave axe, was manufactured in or around North Wales in the early Middle Bronze Age. This period is referred to as the Acton Park phase, because the original hoard of this type of axe was found at Acton Park, near Wrexham, 30 miles from the Great Orme. Hoards of these axes have been found across Britain and beyond. The largest hoard found outside the UK is the Voorhout hoard, from the Netherlands, where 17 axes were found. Closer to home, a hoard of 50 Middle Bronze Age axes was discovered in a field 2 miles from the Great Orme in 1686. A larger hoard of 100 axes, packed heel to toe, was discovered on the Little Orme. Perhaps the full extent of the trade networks from the Great Orme in the Bronze Age has yet to be discovered, but the remarkable evidence from the PhD research of Alan Williams showed palstaves with the chemical and isotopic fingerprint of the Great Orme metal reached as far as Sweden, with other confirmed examples in France and the Netherlands, as well as typologically identical palstaves being found in Germany, Denmark, and Poland. In addition to hammer stones, animal bones were used as tools underground, with over 35,000 unearthed since excavations began. Over half of the bones are from cattle, with the remainder from sheep, goats and pigs. The bones are stained green from exposure to the copper-rich environment for over 3,000 years. They would have mainly been used for scraping around where the rock was softer. Since the Great Orme Bronze Age mines were discovered, students from various universities have studied the archaeology, geology and history of the site at both undergraduate and postgraduate levels. Nearly all of the visible workings date to the Bronze Age period. The rock and entrances exposed today were buried in the ground until 1987, and although a great deal of excavation has taken place, archaeological work will continue both on the surface and underground for decades. Tens of thousands of tons of mine waste are still covering large areas of the early mine workings. A significant number of miners would have worked in the mine, and the remains of a large settlement is probably nearby, buried beneath the waste. A large burial site must also have been present in the Bronze Age. Although a Bronze Age smelting site was discovered on the Great Orme, its small scale would suggest it wasn't the main smelting site for the mine, and a large-scale smelting site is yet to be found. It is almost certain that many exciting discoveries will be made in the future.